I am going to provide you with the 5 specific food categories that Tibetan monks at Sami Monastery have avoided for 1200 years. I will explain the exact mechanism through which each one accelerates biological aging, the replacement for each, and the sequence for implementing the removals that works with your existing habits. A 2023 epigenetic analysis of monks at Sami showed biological ages averaging 18 years younger than chronological age. 8 years were attributed to physical practice, while 10 years were dietary, specifically the sustained absence of 5 categories that the 12th century Tibetan medical text, the Gyushi, identifies as corrupting the vital winds and accelerating the aging of the channels. The science finally has a name for what the Gyushi described. NFQB, nuclear factor kappa B, the master transcription factor for systemic inflammation. When it is chronically activated, it drives IL-6, TNF-alpha, and C-reactive protein. The cytokines the Horvath epigenetic clock reads as its primary aging signals. The 5 categories activate through 5 different entry points simultaneously. These are not the 5 foods you're expecting. None of them is sugar in general, alcohol, or processed food as a broad category. They are 5 specific forms of ordinary foods that most men over 50 consume daily. There is also a compounding interaction between the 1st and 5th categories that leaves a shared downstream pathway active if you remove one without the other. Understanding that interaction tells you which 2 to address first. Make a tight fist with your dominant hand. Squeeze fully for 10 seconds. Release and open completely. Count how long before every finger straightens and all tension leaves the palm. Write that number down. That release delay is a real-time indicator of current tissue inflammation level. We will test again at the end. NFQB is a transcription factor, a protein that sits dormant in the cytoplasm of every cell until an activation signal arrives. When it activates, it moves into the nucleus and switches on genes that produce inflammatory cytokines. Those cytokines are what the Horvath clock reads as biological aging signals. Not because the Horvath clock is measuring inflammation directly, but because chronic inflammation is what drives the accelerated DNA methylation the clock measures. The 5 food categories are not 5 separate problems. They are 5 different switches that activate the same master switch. Remove them, and the switch stops being chronically triggered. The methylation rate slows. The biological age gap narrows over months. When it activates, it moves into the nucleus and turns on genes that produce inflammatory cytokines. Those cytokines accelerate the methylation tagging that the Horvath clock reads as biological aging. Every day the 5 foods are present in the diet, NFQB receives activation signals through 5 different molecular pathways. The clock accelerates through 5 simultaneous inputs. The 5 categories, the mechanism of each, and the replacement. None of these categories is what most men expect. None of them is sugar in general, alcohol, red meat, or processed food as a broad label. They are 5 specific forms of ordinary foods, most of them with a health reputation, several of them actively marketed as healthy choices that activate NFQB through mechanisms that have only been understood clearly in the last decade. The first category is seed oils used for cooking: sunflower, corn, soybean, safflower, and canola. These oils are predominantly polyunsaturated fatty acids with multiple carbon double bonds. When heated above 170 degrees C, the temperature any pan on a gas burner reaches within 3 minutes of ignition, those double bonds oxidize and break. The broken chains form aldehydes, specifically 4-hydroxynonenal, 4-HNE, and acrolein. 4-HNE is a direct NFKB activator through the IKK complex, the signaling pathway that gates NFQB activation. It also shortens telomeres independently, damages mitochondrial DNA directly, and converts LDL particles into their oxidized form, which drives endothelial inflammation separately from NFQB. The compound attacks multiple aging pathways simultaneously through a single dietary input. A 2021 paper in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences measured linoleic acid, the primary fatty acid in seed oils, in stored adipose tissue samples collected from Americans over 5 decades. It rose from 9.1% of stored body fat in 1961 to 21% in 2008. That accumulation in body tissue corresponds directly with the rise in metabolic disease, systemic inflammation, and accelerated biological aging trajectories in the same population over the same period. The tissue is absorbing what the diet delivers, and the tissue is aging faster. The monks cook with ghee, clarified butter. Ghee's smoke point is above 250 degrees on C. At any cooking temperature, it produces no aldehydes. The fatty acid profile remains stable. Making ghee at home. Melt 500 grams of unsalted grass-fed butter over low heat for 20 to 30 minutes until the milk solids settle. Strain through a fine mesh. The clear golden oil is ghee, equivalent quality to $35 in commercial versions at 1/3 the cost. Stable at room temperature for 3 to 4 months. The replacement, ghee or coconut oil for high heat cooking, extra virgin olive oil for moderate heat and all cold applications. The damage occurs at heat, specifically above 170 degrees for C, which any pan on a gas burner reaches within 3 minutes. The oils themselves are not the problem. The oxidation products from heating them are. Cold application of seed oils does not produce the same aldehyde load. The problem is exclusively these specific oils plus high heat. Making ghee at home, melt 500 grams of unsalted grass-fed butter over low heat for 25 to 30 minutes until the milk solids settle and the water evaporates. Strain through a fine mesh. The clear golden oil is ghee, equivalent quality to commercial versions at 1/3 the cost. Stable at room temperature for 3 to 4 months. The second category is modern wheat in processed forms. White bread, commercial pasta, packaged baked goods, not ancient wheat. The specific high-yield hybrid variety developed during the Green Revolution of the 1960s, bred for maximum grain production rather than digestive compatibility. Modern wheat contains 3 to 5 times more gliadin, the specific protein fraction of gluten, than ancient varieties like einkorn or emmer. That elevated gliadin concentration triggers zonulin production in the intestinal epithelium. Zonulin is the protein regulating the tight junctions between intestinal cells, the molecular gates that control what crosses from the gut lumen into the bloodstream. Elevated zonulin opens those gates wider than intended. Bacterial fragments, lipopolysaccharides, and partially digested proteins cross the intestinal barrier and enter circulation. The immune system responds. NF-QB activates. A 2021 study in Nutrients measured zonulin levels in participants consuming modern wheat versus ancient grain einkorn over 2 weeks. Modern wheat elevated zonulin 3 to 4 times more than einkorn under identical conditions. Elevated zonulin correlates directly with IL-6, TNF-alpha, and C-reactive protein, the exact cytokines the Horvath clock is most sensitive to. The monks eat sampa, roasted barley flour. Barley has a glycemic index of 28 compared to 75 for white bread and does not contain the ATI proteins present in modern wheat that additionally activate the TLR4 immune receptor. The replacement is not eliminating bread, but replacing the source. Long fermented sourdough made with ancient grain varieties, spelt, einkorn, or emmer. Genuine 72-hour fermentation predigests a significant portion of gliadin. This is available at artisan bakeries or straightforward to make at home. Standard supermarket sourdough is typically modern wheat with minimal fermentation. It does not replicate the mechanism. The glycemic index difference also matters independently of the gliadin mechanism. White bread at glycemic index 75 produces a rapid insulin spike that suppresses autophagy, the cellular cleanup process that removes damaged proteins and organelles, for the duration of the elevated insulin period. Autophagy suppression is directly linked to accelerated biological aging. The monk's barley at glycemic index 28 produces a modest insulin response that does not suppress autophagy at the same level. They are not intentionally protecting autophagy. They are eating the grain that their agricultural environment produced for 10 centuries. But the biological consequence of that grain choice is preserved autophagy, which the Western diet, through its reliance on high glycemic refined grains, chronically suppresses. The third category is processed and cured meats. Bacon, deli meats, smoked sausages, hot dogs, anything preserved with nitrates or through the smoking and curing process. Not meat in general, the specific compounds produced by preservation chemistry. Two mechanisms operate simultaneously. Nitrosamines form when nitrates combine with amino acids under heat. They are direct DNA alkylating agents. They modify base pairs in the DNA and produce exactly the methylation errors the Horvath clock measures as accelerated aging. Advanced glycation end products, AGEs, form when sugars and proteins react under the heat, time, and acidic conditions of curing and smoking. AGEs cross-link collagen fibers throughout the body, vessels, tendons, joint surfaces, making them progressively stiffer and less functional. The RAGE receptor, which is the primary cellular receptor for AGEs, is itself a dedicated NF-κB activator. Each AGE molecule that binds to RAGE produces an NF-κB activation signal. A 2022 paper in Aging Cell directly correlated plasma age levels with the Horvath clock. Men in the highest quartile of processed meat consumption showed biological ages 4.3 years older than chronological age when controlling for other dietary variables. The age-RAGE NF-κB pathway is the mechanism connecting the diet to the DNA. The replacement, fresh unprocessed meat in any amount preferred. The age and nitrosamine load is determined by the preservation method, not by the presence of meat. A fresh steak, chicken breast, or piece of fish does not produce the same NF-κB signal as cured and smoked products. The monks in non-strictly vegetarian lineages eat small amounts of fresh yak meat. They do not eat preserved, smoked, or processed meat of any kind. The distinction has nothing to do with ethics or tradition. It is mechanistic. The preservation chemistry produces the compounds. Fresh cooking does not. A man who stops eating bacon and deli meats but continues eating fresh chicken and beef has eliminated the third category entirely without reducing his animal protein intake at all. The fourth category is sugar in liquid form. Sodas, fruit juice including freshly squeezed, sweetened coffee drinks, sports drinks, and flavored waters. Not solid sugar. Liquid fructose specifically, and the pathway it takes to the liver. When fructose arrives at the liver as a liquid bolus, bypassing the gut satiety sensors that solid food activates, it drives de novo lipogenesis and critically elevates uric acid. Uric acid competitively inhibits nitric oxide synthase, the enzyme that produces the nitric oxide, keeping arterial walls flexible and endothelial cells in their anti-inflammatory state. When endothelial nitric oxide drops, the endothelial cells shift into an inflammatory phenotype. NF-κB activates in the arterial wall. The vascular aging that results is rapid, measurable, and independent of body weight. A 2023 paper in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology found that more than 2 sugar-sweetened beverages daily was associated with vascular aging equivalent to 10 additional years, independent of body mass index and other metabolic variables. The uric acid mechanism is what connects liquid fructose to vascular aging through a pathway that caloric counting cannot explain and that most nutrition guidance does not address. The monks drink pocha, their daily butter tea made from strongly brewed black tea, yak butter, and salt. 0 added sugar. The replacement is complete removal of the liquid sugar category. Plain water, black coffee, unsweetened green or black tea, sparkling water. Not diet sodas. Artificial sweeteners activate similar gut signaling disruptions through different mechanisms. One specific detail about freshly squeezed juice. It is the most surprising item in this category because it is widely promoted as healthy. The fructose in a glass of orange juice is chemically identical to the fructose in a soda. The delivery mechanism is the same. Liquid bolus, bypassing gut satiety sensors, arriving at the liver as concentrated fructose, elevating uric acid within 2 hours. The vitamin C in the orange juice does not neutralize this mechanism. A glass of juice has approximately the same uric acid impact as a glass of soda. The monks are not aware of orange juice as a category. It does not exist in their tradition. They are aware that sweetened liquids are categorically different from whole sweet foods, which they do consume in small amounts without the same metabolic consequence. The fifth category is pasteurized and homogenized dairy from commercial Holstein sources. Milk, most commercial yogurt, most commercial cheese. The A1 casein and Holstein milk, the dominant variety in Western commercial dairy, is digested into beta-casomorphin 7. BCM7. BCM7 has opioid receptor activity and promotes intestinal inflammation through a pathway parallel to the gliadin mechanism in Category 2. Both open the intestinal barrier and drive NF-κB through the same bacterial translocation pathway. The compounding interaction between Category 2 and Category 5 is this shared downstream mechanism. Remove one and the other continues activating the same pathway through the same route. Remove both and the pathway is cleared. Homogenization compounds this by forcing milk fat through high-pressure processing, reducing fat globule size to microparticles that oxidize more readily in the digestive tract. Those oxidized fat particles enter circulation and contribute to the same endothelial NF-κB signal as the regeneration from Category 1. This is the compounding interaction between Category 1 and Category 5. Both produce oxidized lipid particles that activate NF-κB through the endothelial RAGE pathway. Removing the cooking oil without removing the commercial dairy leaves that pathway partially active. Removing both clears it completely. The replacement: fermented dairy, genuine kefir, full-fat plain yogurt from small producers, goat dairy, which is naturally A2 casein. Fermentation predigests the casein, eliminates the BCM7 production pathway, and produces K2, the vitamin that directs calcium into bone rather than arterial walls. A practical note on what counts as fermented dairy versus commercial yogurt. Commercial yogurt from major brands is often pasteurized after fermentation, which destroys the bacterial cultures that make fermentation beneficial. The label says yogurt, but the bacterial activity has been eliminated. The distinction to look for: does the yogurt need refrigeration throughout its entire shelf life? And is the bacterial culture listed as live and active? Standard commercial yogurt in plastic containers from major brands often does not meet the standard. Full-fat plain yogurt from small local producers, genuine kefir, or any cultured dairy product that requires continuous refrigeration and has a relatively short shelf life, 2 to 3 weeks, is the correct category. Goat dairy sidesteps the question because the A2 casein structure does not produce BCM7 under any preparation method. The 5 categories identified, the compounding interactions understood, the complete daily system. Week 1. Remove the cooking oil and all liquid sugar. These are the 2 highest volume NF-κB inputs for most men and the 2 changes with the most immediate measurable effect. The cooking oil change takes 5 minutes. Replace what is in the cabinet. The liquid sugar change takes a refrigerator reset. Most men report reduced abdominal bloating within 72 hours of removing the liquid fructose load because uric acid begins falling within 48 hours. These are the 2 highest volume NF-κB inputs for most men and the 2 changes that produce the most immediate inflammatory signal reduction. Most men report reduced abdominal bloating within 3 days of removing the liquid fructose load because uric acid begins to fall within 48 hours of reducing the fructose input. Replace the cooking oil with ghee for high heat and extra virgin olive oil for medium heat. Replace every sweetened beverage with a plain alternative. These 2 changes require no new cooking skills, no new recipes, and no changes to meal timing or portion size. Week 3. Replace commercial dairy with fermented dairy and reduce modern wheat by 50%. The 2-week delay after week 1 allows the gut microbiome to adjust to the changes already made before adding the dairy and wheat transition simultaneously. Begin sourcing long-fermented ancient grain sourdough. Most artisan bakeries produce it. A 72-hour fermentation sourdough from spelt or einkorn is the target. If no local source exists, making sourdough at home requires flour, water, salt, and a starter, which is straightforward to maintain once established. Week 5. Complete the full wheat transition and remove all processed meats. By week 5, the changes from weeks 1 and 3 are established habits rather than active decisions. The remaining 2 categories can be addressed without the cognitive load they would have required if attempted at the start. The cost of the complete protocol is approximately equal to the current diet. Ghee used in smaller quantities at higher temperatures per cooking session is cost neutral compared to seed oils. Ancient grain sourdough costs more per loaf, but requires smaller portions for the same satiety. You buy less and feel less satisfied. Fresh meat over processed meat runs similar or lower cost per gram of protein. Plain beverages are cheaper than sweetened ones. Fermented dairy from small producers costs the same per serving as commercial dairy from major brands. Three problems appear consistently in the first 30 days. The new cooking oil smokes at medium heat. Diagnosis: applying too high a flame for the oil chosen. Extra virgin olive oil has a smoke point of approximately 180 degrees C, suitable for medium heat sauteing, but not high heat searing. Ghee handles above 250 degrees. Correction: use ghee for searing, stir frying, and any high heat cooking. Use olive oil for medium heat and all cold applications. The practical rule: if the oil smokes before the food goes in, the temperature is too high for olive oil. Switch to ghee for that application. Signal that it is correct. No smoke, no acrid smell, and the food does not taste bitter at the edges. Strong and persistent hunger in days 4 through 10 after reducing modern wheat. Diagnosis: the insulin cycle that modern wheat's glycemic index of 75 maintains has been disrupted. The body is transitioning from glucose-driven to fat-driven energy supply. That transition produces genuine hunger before it stabilizes, typically between days 4 and 10. Correction: increase fat and protein in the first 2 meals during this window. 2 tablespoons of nut butter or 2 eggs at breakfast provide the energy the wheat was delivering without the insulin spike that drove the hunger cycle. By day 12 to 14, the hunger normalizes and energy becomes steady rather than spike and drop. This is a transition, not a permanent state. Diagnosis: the insulin cycle that modern wheat's glycemic index maintains has been disrupted. The body is transitioning from insulin-driven energy supply to fat-driven energy supply, and that transition produces genuine hunger before the new pattern stabilizes. Correction: increase fat and protein in the first 2 meals during this window. 2 tablespoons of nut butter or 2 eggs added to breakfast provide the energy the wheat was delivering without the insulin spike that maintained the hunger cycle. Signal that it has resolved. By day 12 to 14, energy becomes stable rather than spike and crash, and the hunger between meals normalizes. No change in the FIS test at 30 days. Diagnosis: one of the 5 categories has not been fully removed. The most common hidden source: seed oils in restaurant food and commercial packaged products, which use seed oils for virtually all cooking. Home cooking changes address roughly 50 to 60% of seed oil exposure for most men. The remaining 40 to 50% is consumed outside the home. Correction: when eating out, ask for dishes prepared in olive oil or butter explicitly, or choose grilled preparations without added oil. When buying packaged food, read the ingredients panel. Sunflower, canola, soybean, corn, and cottonseed oils are all in the first category. Any one of them appearing regularly in the diet continues the 4-H&E production from that input, even if the home cooking has been corrected. The second most common hidden source: sauces and condiments, which almost universally use soybean or canola oil as their base. Commercial mayonnaise, most salad dressings, most hot sauces, most commercial nut butters outside of pure single-ingredient products, all seed oil sources. Reading the ingredients panel on these takes 10 seconds once and eliminates the hidden sources permanently. Signal that it is fixed. The FIS test release time begins shortening within the first week after removing the hidden sources. Make the fist again, same hand. Full 10-second squeeze. Hold the full 10 seconds. Release completely. Count the seconds before every finger straightens and all tension clears from the palm. Compare to the number you wrote at the opening. The change in release time, even a reduction of 1 or 2 seconds, confirms that the inflammatory load has begun to shift. Most men see a small difference after implementing the 2-week-1 changes consistently for 30 days. A larger difference appears at 60 days when the age reduction compounds with the CRP reduction. The FIS test is not the Horvath clock. It is the observable signal that the mechanisms are active while the clock changes invisibly in the background. Timeline: days 1 through 7. Reduced abdominal bloating and post-meal heaviness. The most immediate response to removing zonulin, elevating gliadin, and intestinal irritating BCM7 simultaneously. Uric acid falls within 48 hours of stopping liquid fructose, and many men report that the diffuse joint ache that was present in the morning, particularly in the hands and lower back, reduces measurably within the first week. This is not the Horvath clock changing. This is the acute inflammatory load dropping rapidly once the primary inputs are removed. Days 14 through 21. Morning joint stiffness begins to reduce further. CRP, the systemic inflammatory marker most directly linked to the dietary removals, starts falling, typically measurable in blood work at 3 to 4 weeks. Month 1. The FIST test release time shortens measurably. Age cross-linking in the connective tissue begins to reduce as the dietary age input decreases, and the body's repair mechanisms, no longer overwhelmed by incoming ages, begin working down the existing backlog. Month 2 to 3, the Horvath clock markers shift. IL-6 and TNF-alpha take 60 to 90 days of consistent removal before measurable reductions appear in blood work. The biological age change is not a weeks-long process. It is a months-long compounding process. The daily observations in the first month are the confirmation that the mechanisms are active, not the endpoint. The endpoint is measured at 90 days in a blood work panel, and again at 6 months when the compounding has had more time to accumulate. 2 actions this week, both achievable tonight. Tonight, replace the cooking oil in your kitchen with ghee or extra virgin olive oil. This is a 5-minute task that eliminates the highest volume source of 4-HNE in most men's diets. Remove every sweetened beverage from the refrigerator, including the orange juice, and replace with plain water, unsweetened tea, or sparkling water. These 2 removals address the first and fourth categories simultaneously and begin clearing the NF-kappa B activation load within 72 hours. One warning: if you have a diagnosed inflammatory bowel condition, reduce modern wheat by 50% before eliminating it. The gut microbiome adjusts to the reduced gliadin load over 2 to 3 weeks, and rapid elimination can temporarily worsen symptoms in susceptible individuals. That 18-year biological age gap at Sami Monastery, the monks did not earn it by eating extraordinary food or following an extraordinary supplement regimen. They earned it by 12 centuries of not consuming 5 ordinary inputs that were accelerating the DNA methylation process every single day. The biology was never complicated. The inputs were. Specifically, there were 5 of them, and they are still in your kitchen right now. They just needed to stop. Leave your FIST release time in the comments, the number from the opening, and the number from right now after the 10-second squeeze. Come back in the 30 days with the result after implementing both week 1 actions. The reduction will be there if the inputs have been consistently removed. And send this to one man who is spending money on anti-aging supplements while cooking in sunflower oil every morning and drinking orange juice with breakfast and eating bacon on weekends. He is not failing to age slowly because he lacks the right supplement. He is failing because the inputs that accelerate the process are running every day while the supplements attempt to offset them. Remove the inputs, the biology recovers. It has been waiting to recover. It just needed the 5 things to stop. The 5 inputs, the 5 stops. That is the complete protocol. Start tonight. The 5 inputs are already in your kitchen. If this story changes how you view the ordinary items in your pantry, please subscribe and like the video. We are uncovering the biological history that modern industry has tried to bury. Plant the seeds for your future health. The next treasure of longevity will be revealed soon.